Are novels still relevant in a modern age? With streaming platforms and other types of media becoming increasingly popular, many may wonder why novels are still being produced. After all, watching a TV program or listening to a podcast takes far less effort and energy than spending valuable time reading a book. And whilst non-fiction books have the obvious purpose for education, at a first glance, novels do not have a parallel aim. However, during the lockdowns that occurred over the COVID-19 pandemic, book sales rose dramatically and are continuing to do so. As some of you may know, as part of my EPQ project qualification, I wrote part of a historical fiction novel, so I clearly love books. However, even if you don't think you like to read and haven't read a book since GCSE, or if you simply prefer non-fiction books, there are many benefits that you can only receive from reading novels, and so many different types of novel out there that there is guaranteed to be something you'll like. For many, the word novel conjures up images of dusty, leather-bound classics that are outdated and irrelevant to our lives today. But these books still have themes that transcend time. And while I am referring to them, I'm also going to be talking about the books that have been and are being written and published in our lifetime, and thus reflect the state of the world today. These books are being written for and about you. Some of the more obvious reasons for book sales continuing to rise are that their books still contain many moral teachings that aren't found as commonly in other types of media. In novels, characters often find themselves at a low point, feeling so lost that they don't know how to continue. However, with hard work and determination, they push forward, leading to the novel's conclusion and illustrating the qualities that are necessary for growth. Reading novels is also more memorable and rewarding than watching a TV program, which offers instant gratification, as one has to spend time and energy reading a novel, affording a greater sense of satisfaction and achievement upon completion. Novels also inspire imagination and creativity. People who like to read often deliberately read the novel before watching its movie adaptation, as this allows them to picture the characters and the world without the film's influence. This makes it a more engaging experience, as people can picture themselves as a character or simply as watching in the middle of a setting. Films also cut out many important plot points and characters due to time and budget limitations, making the adaptation much different to the novel. Ask anyone who's read the novel that these films are based on, and they'll tell you, the book is always better. Novels also help to educate people. Researchers at Emory University conducted a study in 2013 to determine whether reading novels caused measurable changes in the brain's resting state connectivity, and if so, how long these changes persist. They had participants read the novel Pompeii over 9 days and used fMRI scans to chart the results of this. They found that as tensions built up within the novel, more areas of the brain lit up with activity, with increased brain activity in the somatosensory cortex especially, which is on your top right-hand side of the screen, seen for several days afterwards. These effects can be used to aid the prevention of memory decay, with conditions such as dementia being averted or lessened in the elderly who read regularly. My favorite novel is The Girl in the Blue Coat by Monica Hesse. It is a captivating historical fiction novel that taught me a lot about Nazi-occupied Amsterdam and the bravery of those who resisted the regime. Hesse is a journalist and spent a lot of time researching the period extensively and speaking to those who experienced it to make sure she portrayed it as accurately and respectfully as possible, and this is evident in her writing. She also writes eloquently about the characters' personal lives and the small betrayals that occur in all everyday relationships, reminding modern readers that, although the people in the history books seem to have lived in the very distant past, they were real people with real emotions, just like you or I. Actually, novels often impart important information about historical time periods, whether or not they were specifically written to do so. When reading, people get a glimpse into the social conventions, political context, and other key aspects of the time period that historical fiction novels or other books were written or set in. For example, Jane Austen did not write her books to teach readers about her era. However, the many social rules that her characters must be mindful of heavily influence the text, giving modern readers a fascinating insight into the early 19th century. As all films and podcasts are less than 150 years old, there are no films from most periods of history, meaning that, although period pieces can imitate the era, there is no better way to learn about the past than by reading a book that was actually written at the time. After all, Austen knew far more about living in her society than the actors and directors of today, who will all have some kind of bias in their portrayal. Novels can also help you to relax. When dealing with stress, you may turn to coping techniques such as drinking tea, going for a walk, or listening to music. However, MindLab International at the University of Sussex conducted a study in 2009, finding that reading for just 6 minutes slowed participants' heart rates and eased their bodily tensions up to 68%, making it 300% more effective than going for a walk. In addition to this, prominent sleep psychologists, such as Tim Ferriss, recommends reading novels before bedtime as they create a sense of disengagement that prevents worry about the past or the future. Novels also promote better relationships. When reading, people are afforded a constant view into characters' inner monologues, helping them to develop a better sense of empathy. These insights, especially into the minds and thoughts of characters that differ vastly from ourselves, help readers to gain new perspectives, which can then be applied in everyday life with people that readers may have preconceived notions about. Novels also remain as one of the few forms of entertainment that are accessible to just about everybody. Every week, I volunteer at my local library, Battersea Park Library, where most of the people I interact with are on the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum. This means that they don't have access to technology as they lack the funds for both devices and Wi-Fi. However, checking out books from your public library is free. One boy comes alone multiple times a week to take out as many books as he can to keep himself occupied, whilst in another family, the child, mother, father, and grandmother all have their own library cards to keep themselves entertained with books throughout the week. Another family moved to London just 6 weeks ago, speaking no English, and have been using novels, among other books, to teach themselves the language so that they can communicate and understand people at work and school better. This shows that novels are still vital to huge parts of our community, as they are accessible to everyone, since anyone can check out books for free from a public library. Finally, reading novels also makes you happier. In a 2019 survey conducted by Kindle, they inspected 13 countries and found that 71% of participants who reported themselves as reading weekly were happier than those who reported themselves to read less frequently. So, although you may not have read novels in the past because you felt they were boring, pointless, or time-consuming, this is clearly not the case, as novels have a huge range of benefits that impact our daily lives. And although the first novel was written in the 11th century, they can still make us happier and healthier. So next time you find yourself reaching for a TV remote, why not pick up a novel instead? Thank you.